Hello and welcome to Artful Loving. In this episode, I discuss redesigning monogamy. What is this thing called monogamy and how can we make it work for us? So stick around. Hi, I'm Nick Tovey, relationships and intimacy counsellor and coach. Thank you for being with us today. If you'd like to learn more about me, check out my website, nicktovey.com. And if you want to dive in a little deeper into this conversation, come over to Patreon for patron-only experiences and content. And of course, click the subscribe button. So as I said, I want to talk about redesigning monogamy. What do I mean by that? Well, we've all sort of bought into an idea of what modern relationships is all about and how they work and what the parameters are for what committed relationship looks like. And of course, the most common accepted style for relationship is monogamy. So what does that mean? I mean, essentially, it means having a relationship with one person. Mono. It's about relating with one person, not multiple people. And of course, we can look at the history of how our accepted version of monogamy has become the norm. And we can also look at so many ways in which it doesn't work that way. And so many people in relationships go outside of their relationship and have something that is not monogamous. So what we can see is that the accepted norm doesn't really work, and it's not really defined in clear parameters. So this is what I want to engage with, is around how do we create a conversation around what our version of monogamy looks like, and how can we live by that and create rules and of engagement and agreements around what our version of monogamy looks like, so we know when it's not working for us. That's the important point. What we can see in the world is that people cheat. People go outside of the relationship and transgress and create intimate connections with other people. And often that's done in ways which are harmful and hurtful and damaging. And often it's done with a certain level of assumptions around what is okay and what's not okay in the relationship. So it's really important that we define and have the conversations around what's okay, what's not okay. So many assumptions get made in particularly in monogamous relationships. When I look at alternatives to monogamy, things like polyamory, open relationships, often in those relationship styles, in those agreed setups, what happens is a lot of conversation, a lot of exploration. Doesn't always work very well, but what I have seen and experienced, and of course been a part of, is really in-depth conversations around what we desire, what would feel good to us, and how can we navigate those desires and explorations in a way that is respectful of the other person's needs and desires also. And so we as two individuals that make up the couple, how can we both express and firstly understand what our desires are, and then share that with the other to see where we can come together and design something that works for us. Every relationship is unique. So to expect a relationship to work in the same way as maybe the last relationship worked, maybe isn't going to work so well for us. We need to have these conversations around what works for us, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. I just want to say here that I'm not in any way advocating for an open relationship or a polyamorous relationship. Of course, they're choices, they're options that are available. I don't believe that we need to fully just accept that monogamy is the only choice, because that's just not true. It may not be the right choice for us. But I guess this exploration is, this conversation, this episode is all about making your version of monogamy work for you, and not just assuming that this is just how it's going to happen. And we all need to abide by these assumed rules and boundaries and parameters. Because if we haven't talked about it, how can we expect to know what they are? We need to have the conversation. And of course, the conversation may bring stuff up for us. It may be uncomfortable. It may bring all of our insecurities up to the surface. And I think this is the important point to really zero in on for a moment, is a lot of our accepted versions of monogamy are built up in a way to protect us from our own insecurities. And they're also built up in ways, in old and outdated ways of having ownership and control over the other person, and making, having some notion that as we're together, I own you. I now own your sexuality, your body, your mind, your desires. And of course, that's not a very modern and freeing and healthy experience. It may not be what's going to work for you. Of course, that can work for some, and if it does, great, go for it. But if that's not how you want to live life, if you want to live life with some autonomy and sovereignty and personal freedom and choice over how you engage with life, then we need to talk about how we can best do that. So before we talk about how we can design our own version of monogamy, let's talk about why people cheat. Of course, people cheat. People go outside of the relationship. So what are the motivations that lead people to transgress? Often it comes down to a few different factors, and them being excitement, being with somebody else is exciting. There's a level of novelty, newness, something different than the norm. There's recognition, being validated, being somebody having some level of desire and validation for us, when maybe these things are lacking in the relationship that we're in. So all of these factors, another one being danger. It's risky. It's risky to go outside of the relationship. There's a possibility that we could get caught, that we could get busted. So there's an element of danger. What does that feel like? It feels exciting. All of these things help us feel alive and feel a sense of excitement and newness, and they get our blood boiling, and it feels really, really good. Makes sense, yeah? We all want to feel like that. But I think it's important to look at these things and go, okay, if that's the only way I can get to feel life, get to feel these beautiful things and exciting things, then there's something wrong with the relationship. Let's zero in on the relationship and see how we can create these experiences in the relationship, rather than needing to go outside of the relationship to get them. So we need to look at that. The other important thing to really recognize and to accept and to own is the fact that, yes, we may be in relationship. Yes, we may love each other. We may really want to be together and desire each other, and that's beautiful. And we're always going to be attracted to other people. To imagine that we're not is just a whole heap of denial, and is going to set us up for problems in the future. There are beautiful people in the world. There's a world full of sexy, beautiful individuals that sometimes we're attracted to, whether it's just physically or just something happens on a more deeper level, on this energetic level. And of course, it can be a sexual desire also. That can be included. Just because those things happen doesn't mean that I don't like you anymore. Doesn't mean I don't love you anymore. Doesn't mean I'm not attracted to you anymore. So this is the really important thing to recognize when we're having this conversation around how do we design our monogamy. We need to understand and recognize and accept the fact that you're going to be attracted to somebody else at some time, and so am I. And to if we bring that into truth, into the reality of the world, then it's no longer hidden. It's no longer this elephant in the room that we're all tiptoeing around and hoping to God that it doesn't happen, and the other person doesn't follow through on that attraction. This is the important point. Attraction is going to happen. We get to choose what we do with that attraction. Another factor to bring in and recognize is that we've all got our history. We've all got a relationship biography, which has brought us to this point in our relationship history. So we've all got exes. We've all been hurt, and we've all hurt other people. That's also all a part of our history, which we're bringing into this relationship, into this experience, and that we need to accept, we need to be okay with. If we're challenged by the fact that our partner has some relationship history, maybe they're even friends with their ex-partner, or they're connected on social media or something like that, it doesn't mean that you're not in relationship together, you're not connected, and they're not committed to you. These are the things that are going to trigger and ignite our insecurities and our jealousies. And we can't tiptoe around these things, because ultimately your insecurity is yours to own. And if your insecurity is being triggered by certain things, then that's not necessarily your partner's fault. Yeah, you need to take care of yourself and your own insecurity, and maybe you need to go and do some work with it. You need to maybe see a therapist, a counselor, a coach, and do some work with it, but not make it about the other person's problem. And that, of course, doesn't mean that we don't that people can't give us reason not to trust them. Yeah, of course, people act badly, people behave badly, people lie, people withhold truth, you can feel when somebody is giving you reason to not trust them. Yeah, it's important that that is a reality at sometimes. And is it just your own insecurity? Do you have a history of being hurt, which you maybe need to go and do some work with? So then coming down to the questions around what your version of monogamy looks like. Recognizing each partner has the ability and the capacity and they're going to be attracted to other people. And they have other people in their lives. It's important that each partner has their own friendship groups. And guess what? Sometimes those friends could be people of the opposite sex, people they may even be attracted to. And that's okay. But of course, it's not okay if they go and engage with that person in a way which is outside of our agreements, which is why we need to really nut down what these agreements are. So, is it okay for your partner to be in a friendship group with an ex? Is it okay for your partner to talk to other people of the opposite sex, people they may be attracted to at work? These are the things that we need to examine. And of course, when we're examining these things, where do they bring up levels of discomfort? Where do I start to clench and feel afraid of being abandoned, of being neglected, being cheated upon? Yeah. If we're afraid of being cheated upon, we need to define what cheating is, so we can then work with it and create some parameters and rules of engagement and agreements so cheating doesn't happen. Hopefully, there's never any guarantees. Yeah, things happen. Yeah, the question of pornography is often one that comes into play. Is it okay for your partner to watch pornography, regardless of what gender we're talking about? And is that some way a betrayal against you if they're watching and getting turned on by videos of other people naked or having sex? Is that something that you're triggered by? Of course, it may be okay. It may be something you can share. Pornography is definitely an episode for another time. We need to talk about it. It's important that we have a conversation around it because it has its downsides, it has its cons. But is it necessarily a bad thing? Is it cheating to watch pornography when I'm in a relationship? In my view, I don't think so. I think it can be something that it can be navigated in a healthy and open and conscious way. But of course, that's not often the case. So like I said, it's really important to just have these conversations, to nut out together in a healthy and orchestrated way, and also being understanding that feelings are going to they're going to come up. Feelings are going to be in this conversation. We need to be okay with the fact that each other has feelings, has triggers, has maybe traumatic history that comes up when we have these conversations. Yeah, if we've had an experience, a history of being cheated upon, these are going to be really challenging conversation. Our ability to trust is not always going to be easy, which is why it's super, super important that we talk about it, that we bring it into the open, that we have open conversations, open and honest conversations, so we can help each other deal with our own nervous system, deal with our own anxieties and insecurities, so we can trust each other. We can't fully trust each other when we don't talk about it, when we hide it, when we avoid the difficult conversations. So this is really the point, is how can we come together, have these difficult conversations, create some rules of engagement around how we're going to do our relationship. So then it's very clear you just broke an agreement, yeah? But if we had an agreement about, I don't know, let's say chatting to an ex on social media, and you went and did that, you went outside of our agreements, it's really clear that you have broken an agreement. Unless we've had that conversation, I don't know if I'm breaking an agreement. If I'm acting out in a way which is that you're not going to be okay with, because we haven't defined it. We haven't had those conversations. So it's really, really important that we dive in and have these uncomfortable conversations. So don't be afraid. Jump in, explore it. Look at, maybe as an individual first, go and write down what is important for you. What is going to trigger you? What is going to bring up fears and anxieties? And this is the important thing. Just because it brings up fears and anxieties doesn't mean it's automatically an agreement that your partner needs to agree to. Yeah, your fears and anxieties are yours to own and to do what you need to do with. It may be unreasonable to expect your partner to behave in a way that just panders to your fears and anxieties. So this is why it's super important to take personal responsibility, talking about the accountability, the second pillar of the revolutionary relationship, as we talked about in episode 2. Check that out. Are you being accountable for your own emotional well-being? Or are you projecting that and making it your partner's responsibility? That's not cool. So having those conversations, so writing it down, what's important, what do you need to work with, and what do you desire? What do you desire? What level of autonomy and freedom do you desire in a relationship? And then each partner does that. They write down their list, and then you come together, have a glass of wine, talk about it, and nut it out. And then it's about either of you can bring to the table, have a conversation around, do a little bit of negotiation, and then design how you're going to do your relationship. What are the agreements? How are the communications going to happen? How are you going to call each other up when you do start to feel that you're going outside of an agreement? If you want to adjust and manipulate and change some of the agreements that you made, they may not be set in stone. We can change our agreements. How do we navigate that? How can we have those conversations? Is it a conversation we revisit every year, for example? Do we, have an inventory and we come to say, okay, this worked, this not so well. Maybe we need to adjust that. Yeah, these are really good things to bring into a relationship. Anyway, I'm going to leave it with that. I hope this has been useful. I really encourage you to have these conversations with yourself. If you're not in a relationship, also really important to have these conversations with yourself and to get clear on what the kind of relationship you want. So then when you're meeting somebody, is this okay? Do we meet in these areas, or is there a misalignment? It's really important to know beforehand. Anyway, I hope this has been useful. Don't forget to subscribe. Any questions, comments, feedback, please put them in the comments. I love to hear from you. All the best. Take care. Keep loving.